Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
And you're back in the black now. You're listening to the Box Seats on Late Night Sports Radio. This is Keith Green from 87sportsfans.com sitting in for the illustrious Bob Sullivan. And I'm joined in the studio, the virtual studio that is, by Alex B. Smith of sportsmemo.com. Alex, how are you?
Doing pretty good. It's finally warming up now. We're getting into Memorial Day weekend. We've got the conference finals in the NBA, the conference finals in the NHL. It's winding down. We're getting to championship time now officially. And it's been a tale of two postseasons. When you look at the NBA playoffs and the NHL and the Stanley Cup playoffs, it's been completely different. The NHL playoffs have been very compelling and a lot of tight battles back and forth and a lot of things that a lot of teams that are favored tend to struggle late, and the underdogs kind of come back and make it a series. And then you look at the NBA, and if you've been betting on home teams lately, you've done very, very well. If you're betting on these heavy favorites, you've done very, very well. It's been predictable according to the Vegas numbers, but it's been topsy-turvy as far as these conference finals go, where the teams play well in front of their home crowd and then just completely seem to fall apart on the road, as we're seeing once again now as Cleveland Cavaliers are absolutely dismantling Toronto once again. It's a home dominated series without question in the NBA.
Well, if you are a Raptors fan, you are probably feeling like this right now.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's well, and then you think about it. Okay, well, if you're a Raptors fan, you just say, all right, well, it's we'll get it back when we go, this next game, and then wait for see if fortune turns around in Game 7, or it's so bizarre, because it looked as if Cleveland was just going, all right, Cleveland's gonna another sweep. They're going to make it to the finals and be well rested for what seemed to be Golden State or outside possibility of Oklahoma City. And then all of a sudden they go into Toronto. Toronto plays a brand of basketball they've been playing to get to the conference finals finally. And it's I've never seen anything like this. You see home teams win it at home and in playoffs and all series driven postseasons, baseball, hockey, and basketball, but just the complete dominance of the home team is something I can't recall seeing this within the last 10-15 years for sure.
Yeah, I mean, usually the home team has, for lack of a better term, luck on their side, but it's never like big blowouts like we've been seeing. I mean, the Golden State Warriors won 73 games. I mean, they're not just like Joe Lucky returning champion or defending champion. They went through and did the dirty all season long, and now all of a sudden Oklahoma City is the juggernaut. I know Steph might be hurt and whatnot, and Draymond is distracted by trying to play Karate Kid and all that. But that game last night was awful, just awful.
Yeah, and what's so bizarre about that series is the fact that, okay, so you had a road team win in Game 1 with Oklahoma City, and, okay, you could kind of see where that possibly, that made sense. It made sense that Oklahoma City Thunder, a good team, coming off of beating another very good team in San Antonio, which, like I said, I've said it on this show and I've said it on other shows as well, it's going to be sad in about 10 or 15 years when we kind of forget what the San Antonio Spurs team this year did. They had just as good, if not one of the best home records in all of the NBA. They were not too far away from behind, trailing Golden State all season long, and they did it with a much older team, veteran team, and you have the system with Greg Popovich resting guys on a regular basis. So, hats off to what San Antonio was able to do. Unfortunately, they weren't even able to get into the conference final. But you had Oklahoma State beat a good team, the Spurs. Golden State kind of cakewalked compared to the rest of the teams advancing in the postseason. They cakewalked a little bit to the conference final. So you expected the Thunder to play well in the first game, and they did, and they won it on the road, which a bit shocking because, like you said, Golden State dominating teams all year long and dominating at Oracle Arena. They come back and they win, in game 2. So you're thinking, okay, well, this is going to be a tight series. Maybe Oklahoma State can, play tough and split at home 2-2, make it a best-of-3 series. No. Oklahoma City, they go home, crazy crowd, and they absolutely obliterate Golden State 2 straight games, and now they have a chance to finally finish these guys off in Oakland tomorrow night. And it's like I said, it's really bizarre, how Steph Curry has just cooled off shooting after being just lights out all season long. And now all the naysayers, all of the Charles Barkleys of the world who said, these outside shooting teams can't win titles, and so forth. This isn't the best team of all time. Now they've got a larger and taller soapbox to stand on and shout from because, what on earth is happening to what everybody was saying is the greatest NBA team in history.
Right, and it's like not like you said, not close games. It's god awful margins of victory, and not playing like, I saw it was a Twitter meme. Okay, so it is what it is. It's social media, but it was Scotty and Michael laughing, and it says the 73 win team is down 3-1 in the conference finals. But it's the same thing that team, the 72 win Bulls team, didn't even was barely challenged, if I remember correctly.
And once they got in the playoffs, I mean, they took care of business.
Yeah, you flip the switch.
Yeah. And the teams that they played good teams, and that's the thing, they played. I read a couple of quotes and heard some blurbs from people saying that basketball nowadays is really, really bad, and I've heard a lot of arguments the other way saying that no, this is some of the best basketball we've seen. And then they started pulling out some numbers talking about, in fact, referencing some of the NBA playoff, some previous NBA playoff games where, for example, 2004, I think it was the Pacers and Detroit Pistons, the Game 7, super low scoring. I think it was it was a 74 to 60 something final. Somebody else referenced the blowout of when Chicago Utah in the 97 finals. Jazz only scored, I think, about 55 points. I do remember watching that game where Chicago was just red hot and played some of the toughest defense you'd seen from them all season, all postseason in that game against a really good Utah Jazz club. And people are saying, "Oh, well, that was boring basketball. It wasn't up and down. It was too so physical. It's hand checking. You couldn't get any shots off." And so you can't make everyone happy. Everyone's saying that this is too wide open of a game, that they're not playing any defense, yada, yada. Well, it's hard to make that argument, too, because we're seeing these blowouts, and we're seeing teams, being defended well. I mean, Toronto is, in their losing efforts, they were shut down defensively. Cleveland clamped down on defense when they were blowing them out. Cleveland they were able to get their points against Toronto and even in their losing games, but Cleveland has played some solid defense. Oklahoma City has played some good defense, even though it's mostly the cool shooting of Golden State that's been the Warriors' downfall. There's defense being played in these postseason games and in modern day basketball, and I just think that I don't know if it's a talent balance issue. I don't know if it's I can't figure out the answer for it. Yes, it's different basketball 10, 15, 20 years from previous. But it's a lot harder, I think, for me watching basketball now than it was back then because it seemed as if the talent pool was a lot more balanced in the 90s and the 2000s than now.
I think your upper echelon talent had more than one way to beat you. You know what I mean? Now the stars today, aside from maybe Durant, I mean, even Russell Westbrook, who is a fantastic player. I don't mean this as a slap, but he's pretty much a one-trick pony. If he's not getting to the tin, you can corral him. He's still going to get some points if he has to shoot, but he's not a shooter. You know what I mean? He's got to get to the basket. Durant is probably one of the few in today's game that I'm thinking of, besides maybe LeBron, who can post you up. They can hit you they can beat you from beyond the arc, and they can take it to the rack.
Yeah.
You know, and not a lot of the stars like Steph Curry. He's a one-trick pony. He's a good one-trick pony, but he's pretty much just a perimeter shot. If he has to put it on the floor, he's not going to be very effective.
Yeah, and he's not going to charge the rim a whole lot for a layup and draw a foul. The only time we saw him throw down a dunk was in a blowout game where he was uncontested. You know,
right.
So yeah, he's these guys have the talent to do multiple things, but like you said, they rely so heavily on their strongest skill that when it's not there, when the deep 30-foot three-point shot's not there for Steph Curry, when the inside looks aren't there for Russell Westbrook, then all of a sudden they're just completely frozen in that one game, and they can't make the adjustments that the Jordans and Pippins and Malones and Stocktons and Barkleys and so on, the Kobe's and Iversons and all those of the world made 10, 20 years ago. And that I think you nailed it better than anybody else and better than anything I could think of, because like you said, these are talented guys, but it's just not the same.
Right. And I also think dovetailing with that take that I just had, the quality of perimeter defenders is gone way down. I mean,
sure.
You've got a few really good wing defenders, and they can defend on the perimeter, but most of the time, these guys are getting blown by.
Yeah.
And
that goes into the hand checking and some of the rule changes that have been made to give shooters more freedom, make a more offensive game, which people wanted to see. That's the thing. Like I said, you can't make everyone happy. We all complained about, college basketball is so wide open and free for the most part, where the NBA was really rigid and super structured. Well, now we have the wide open NBA, and teams just aren't going to. The best teams in the world, as we're seeing right now, Golden State, they're not going to put up 130 points every night. There's no team, and that's any sport. The best offenses in the NFL aren't going to score 50 points every game. Tom Brady's not going to get 6 touchdowns every single game. Pittsburgh Penguins had a fantastic offense in hockey. They're not going to score 6, 7, 8 goals every night. It's just, that's not how the game's played nowadays. Right. In baseball, you had some of the best. Even during the steroid era, you couldn't count on teams scoring 10, 12 runs every single night. So, we complain as fans about, we need, more offense, more this, more that. This is what we want to see. It's exciting, but you have to realize in a 82 game basketball stretch, hockey stretch, 16 game football stretch, these it's not feasible for every game to be a incredible game, and that's what makes it interesting. We want to see how teams do adversity. We want to see balanced teams. We want to see balanced games. And we can't have our cake and eat it too by complaining about when a team has an off night, saying, they're not that good. We were so quick to write them off and say, okay, they're overrated now. What we saw before is a fluke. We can't take seeing a negative game from a team as a fluke,
right?
As fans, and I think that's really weird. And I think that's where I appreciate my view now, being a sports bettor, kind of bringing it back to the betting aspect, is that I can separate the two now and realize and look at numbers and facts and say, okay, this was the off game, be it the positive effort or the negative effort. I can tell where the off game was compared to what their true body of work is. And if we as fans could not even if we don't learn how to see that, but just understand and appreciate and recognize that, hey, not every team's going to play, the best teams will lose games and play poorly. The worst teams will have good games and play well. It's not an aberration every time. It's a bad game. Sometimes there's good aberrations, and we have to be able to distinguish and identify that. And if we don't, we're just going to keep complaining about, not seeing the perfect team every single night. And it's just, it doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help the networks. I'm sure I haven't seen any network ratings for the NBA, or a lot for the NHL for that matter. But I can't imagine the NBA ratings are doing super well, because who's sticking around to watch these blowout games unless you're wagering on it, and you're doing some in-game wagering, and even if you're, I mean, hell, if you're laying the points, like I said, with these home teams in the conference finals, your bet's pretty safe for the most part in these games. So you're not even sweating out laying 11 point spread right now with Cleveland. Right now 86-54. You don't have to worry about that too much unless Toronto gets hot in the next 5 minutes in this quarter and another 12 minutes in the fourth, and it just doesn't seem like that's going to happen. So the ratings have to be taking a giant hit, I would like to think, especially with these NBA conference finals.
For what I'm reading right now, just as you said it, I went to sportsmediawatch.com, and they're saying that they've been flat or lagging behind, but the Western Conference Game 4 the other night hit a series high. So the arrows pointed up. It all depends on what kind of drama there is. People want to see the 73-win team. You either want to see them win, or you really want to see them lose.
Right.
Because you want to say, like you said before, the bigger the soapbox for you to say, yeah, this isn't really that good of a team.
Sure. So. And that makes more sense that would be the more interesting, because that is the more interesting series. I don't think too many people were really looking forward to seeing Cleveland and Toronto and saying, oh, this is going to be a interesting series. This turned out to be an interesting series, but no one was expecting that. I think everyone who wasn't a Toronto Raptors fan was expecting this to be wrapping up. We already have been wrapped up by now. So, and like I said, maybe the topsy-turvy series has made it a bit more interesting for fans. It's definitely way more interesting than I had planned for it to be. But from a betting perspective, it's really tough to, I like to consider myself a very disciplined bettor, and I was on Cleveland in Game 3, and I'm thinking, okay, Cleveland, the way that they've dominated in this series, it just makes sense that they're going to continue to dominate. They're playing, incredible basketball. They've been, the whole stretch, this whole postseason. All right, Toronto shows up in a game at home. That makes sense. But then, now you look at the next game. It's just, I'm not trying to go against trends and patterns that I've followed that have worked over the years. Like you said, there's aberrations in games. I'm chalking this up as an aberration in the postseason. Now, if we see next year's postseason go the same kind of route where home teams dominate, game 1 and 2, and then fall apart completely game 3 and 4, now you have to change the outlook. But I really don't think we're going to see a postseason like this. I hope we don't, because I would like to keep with the trends, especially in hockey as well. There's certain trends you like to follow and patterns you look for when betting playoff series that have worked for me in the past, and I would like to get back to winning with those rather than having to change it drastically and accommodate to something that's completely different, especially if it doesn't stick in future years.
So I'm going to make a claim here with a disclaimer in front of it that I am not a betting man. When I sit in on this show, you are the gambler, you are the wealth of knowledge. I'm just here to talk sports and keep us on task.
Right.
If the Cavaliers win this game, they're currently up 88-56 with 4:33 left in the third quarter. So when the Cavaliers win this, I'm telling you right now, take the Cavaliers at home next game. There's no way Toronto wins that game. I'm telling you. The way that the last game finished up, where Cleveland took the lead, and Toronto was up big, and then Cleveland took the lead and then choked it away at the end for a variety of bad reasons.
All right.
Toronto. I don't think there's a way that Cleveland loses that game. There's my gut feeling right there. Right,
and in a normal NBA playoff year, I would agree with you. If I saw this right now, like I said, 96-50, 90-56 right now. Yes, I'd say, all right, I'll lay the points with Cleveland, up to a certain extent. I wouldn't go and lay 20 points or something crazy of that nature. But I'm guessing, based on what we've seen so far, Cleveland going on the road, so I'm guessing they'll be a 7.5 point favorite to open up. Might be a tad bit higher. But
How
based on how we've seen so far, who know? I mean, the books are going to have to, approach it the same way that we're talking about right now. They got to be like, okay, well, this is a home series, so we can't just go and give Toronto 7 points, 7.5 points, because based on what we've seen already, the home team is who's really the favorite. So, but then how many points do you shade back? And Cleveland's the better team overall. We've known that going into the series. So it's a conflict of power ratings and situations that, for the most part, like I said, it's kept me off of the games from now on. I'm more of a situational bettor when it comes to the NBA in the postseason. And like I said, that's just the situation is different this year than in previous years. So I would love to take Cleveland because I think that, they seem like the better team and they should be able to find a way to win I'm more confident in Cleveland winning on the road than Toronto winning on the road. But when it comes now to laying points or just trying to go against a system that has lost, 5 times in a row, it's not worth it. It's worth saving my money and betting on something else.
I know in football, home teams usually get 3 points right off the bat, correct?
Yeah, give or take. Yeah, 3 points is the standard average difference for home field.
Is there something like that in basketball? Is there a default starting point?
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's home court advantage in basketball. There's home court advantage, home advantage in every sport. And with basketball in the NBA, it's usually between 3 to 5 points. I'd say maybe even 2 to 5 points. There's some teams like the Bulls, for example. United Center has never been a big home court advantage where teams that play in big crowd arenas like Golden State, Miami during the LeBron days when they'd actually fill up the place. And then that's where you'd have the 4.5 point swings. San Antonio, great home team. Utah back in the day when Utah had some incredible crowds for the longest time. You had in the altitude, Denver, another place with the high altitude. So you have that 4.5 point home edge in the lines. You even see it here. Cleveland, 10.5, 11-point favorite with these home games where they were 6.5, 7-point favorites on the road. So there's a 4-point advantage kind of added in there with the Cavaliers.
All right. So, is there any? I know you said you're staying away and it's all over the place, but is there any bet that you would make on the next Golden State Oklahoma City game?
If I were really looking to wager something in the NBA, I would go deep and look into look and see what your book, what kind of props your book offers. So maybe some first half props. Or player props, especially like I said, we've seen such Jekyll and Hyde shooting efforts from, let's say, a Stephen Curry. So looking at maybe over-unders for points scored in this game. If you feel like he might actually come out and have a decent game and shoot well, things of that nature. That's the only thing I would be looking at now in the NBA. So stuff to look at. You give yourself some time, a few hours before the game or early in the day of the game, and do it's usually small research. The way I always look at it, whenever during a course of a regular season in the NBA, I usually take about an hour and a half to just look over first half point totals and things of that nature, some old box scores, and did pretty well for the most part in the season with first half totals last couple of years. So. It's not a lot of work, a lot of in-depth work, especially since now we're at a point where there's only, we already know who these teams are. You don't have to delve in too deep and go backward. Just kind of read the current, as we, to use a racetrack term, current form, and go from there. But like I said, personally, with these basketball games, I think I'm pretty much done betting the NBA until next October. I'll just be sitting back and watching these games. It's going to be interesting to see who wins these two series and how they play each other in the NBA Finals. That's what I'm more curious to see, is that how, how do you bounce back from having such a crazy series like this, and how do you prepare for a team who had the similar kind of series? If it's Golden State in Cleveland, or if it's Toronto or Oklahoma City, how you're basically preparing for each other in the sense of how you made it to the finals, and it'll be very interesting. I think that's what's going to be more interesting, from a viewer standpoint, and it could make for some interesting betting situations depending on how these teams respond going into the finals.
You made a comment before we shift gears here about the San Antonio Spurs.
Yep.
And let me just tell you, let me put a little music here in the background. I say that the Spurs have come full circle. And do you remember the old days of the David Robinson Spurs?
Yeah.
When they'd win 50, 55 games, and everyone would ask themselves questions like, is this the Spurs year? And they would disappoint every year. Every year. They would lose a series that no one thought they would lose. Well, guess what? Everyone had them penciled in to be playing the Warriors, and they biffed it again. So now it has come full circle. Tim Duncan may be retiring. Tony Parker might be done. Manu Ginobili might be done. The Spurs have come full circle. It's now Kawhi's show. Good luck.
Yeah, Kawhi, and they still have. I'm trying to think who it is that they have on the hook for
Aldridge.
A big contract. They have Aldridge, but it's also there's a couple of guys that they have that were reserve guys that they're holding on to. It's a big contract, and Popovich might retire too. So does it end up? Will we see Becky Hammond make the jump and be the first female NBA coach? I don't. I mean, she's been highly regarded, and I know they're saying that she's gotten a lot of offers for college positions that, they're saying she was handpicked to pretty much possibly be the successor. So I don't know how that all is going to work out. I do think there's going to be a significant drop off with the Spurs once everyone is gone. Once their big three and once Popovich is gone, there's going to be some rough growing pains. It's going to be like the old Alamo Dome days. For sure, like you mentioned with David Robinson and Sean Elliott and Vinny Del Negro, it's gonna be back to those days for a while for the silver and black down there in San Antonio.
Do you remember David Robinson, the nickname that Jim Rome had for David Robinson back in the day?
No, I just remember the Admiral, but
they called him the Little Mermaid.
Oh, wow!
They said he was soft. So, looking at the Spurs payroll, Aldridge is under contract till 2019. Leonard is till 20. Parker actually is under contract till 2018, if he doesn't decide to hang it up. Danny Green is under contract.
Yeah, Danny Green, and it was it's and obviously the NBA. It's going to be fun to watch when this new when all these guys are free agents and this new TV deal kicks in and all this. If you think the NBA is spending a bunch of money now, just wait and see how much money is going to be thrown around. I wish I had some talent on the hardwood because there's going to be an exorbitant amount of money. It's going to be near not necessarily close to Premier League soccer status as far as money, but
right.
We're going to see some ridiculous contracts coming up in the next couple of years when the salary cap increase happens, and it's just it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see where all these different players go, and it's going to be like it was a couple of years ago, and the hype of who's going well. Will LeBron stay in Cleveland or leave and all that. And I didn't think there was ever a league that could really out soap opera the National Football League. But the NBA has done a fantastic job about it. The whole this whole Nutcracker situation with Adams.
Draymond Green
and Draymond Green is just so ridiculous and bizarre, and it's funny because I don't think the NBA tries to drum up the controversy that it gets itself into, where the NFL kind of sticks their foot out in things and kind of gets things stirred up and whatnot, but the NBA just kind of falls into these really weird scenarios that just become so dramatic, and with the help of the worldwide sports leader, things get blown into mountainous and cavernous proportions to where we, wake up hearing about it. We go to sleep hearing about it. I've had to find new programming to fall asleep to at night because I just don't want to hear the same thing over and over in my sleep with SportsCenter. I end up dreaming about what I hear on SportsCenter every night, and it's crazy. And I don't think it's helping the NBA's image. It's not making me want to watch the NBA playoffs more by hearing about it, 18 hours a day.
Like 3 days afterwards too.
Yeah, and that's right. And that's the thing. They won't let things go. And at least in the NFL, I'd say the NFL tries to let things go, but you can't really say that because we're still hearing things about Deflategate. I think they said 493 days now that Deflategate thing's gone on. So the NFL doesn't really let things go either. But the NBA, yeah, things harbor and linger for a very long time, which is interesting because this is a sport where they play 82 games a season, have a longer postseason. It makes sense for things to linger in the NFL because there's literally a whole year before something else happens. But
that Deflategate's a whole other issue because the Patriots won't let it die.
Yeah,
I mean,
they won't. Yeah, and Brady's trying to fight the courts to fight this all the way to the Supreme Court as if it's a civil rights case, and it's bizarre, and it's gotten out of hand in all sports, and that's on us, that's on social media, that's on television. We've fed that monster to the point where we can't control it no longer, and I don't know if it'll ever change. We just have to kind of live with it at this point. But it's just it's really bizarre. But the NBA, I've been outspoken about how the NBA handles things from a media perspective for a long time. I'm not nearly as big of an NBA fan as I once was, and there's a number of reasons behind that. The change of the game. As a fan, I was never a fan of the league as a whole. I was just a fan of my team. I was a Bulls fan growing up. And so, I was a fan of players. I liked players. I still follow players, but it's just not, like I said, going back to the conversation earlier, it's not the same. And adding this extra drama and drumming up things that aren't as big, if Adams and Green had a real issue, I think we would see, if this series were to end tomorrow night in a blowout fashion, I really think we would see a fight underneath the hoop between these two guys with about a minute left in the fourth quarter if this was a real issue. But we're not going to see that happen because it's pretty much over and done with. It's not one of those things, and I guess that is a hockey way, the hockey fan in me kind of saying that, because that's kind of how that would be settled in the National Hockey League. But I just really think that we've blown some of these things so far out of proportion that it almost clouds the game in the sense of, can we really just enjoy this as fans? Can we enjoy this without breaking it down, and making, a storyline, this main headline, and, we shouldn't have to have these headlines to enjoy a postseason.
Right. No, I totally agree with you there. Yeah, I totally. And getting back to your other point that the talking heads just keep with this everlasting cycle of just crap.
Yeah.
Just keep it going.
Yeah.
Just let it go.
Yeah.
And you know what? This whole mess about Draymond should be suspended for last night's game or whatever. You really want the playoffs decided on an arbitrary commissioner ruling? I mean, honestly. Now, Draymond Green has got his own issues. He's only shooting like 33% from the floor for the series. But without him there, the team is different. I know they went out and got blown out anyway. But I think that they should negotiate into the CBA a way where anything that happens in the playoffs gets held over to the next season, even if you're a free agent and it'll affect your new team. You know how many players would fall in line with that if it was going to cost them money because they're going to get suspended a game on the front end of another season? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree with your idea, but at the same time, the NBA players are a lot more cavalier about blowing off a regular season game. That's any sport, blowing off a regular season game as opposed to a playoff game. I guess the NFL would be the only exception in that.
Yeah.
But no, and the thing is, should he be suspended for that? Sure. Yeah, you can't kick somebody in the crotch. That's highly against the rules of the NBA. and I believe it looked intentional to me. I think he should have been suspended. Conversely, he wasn't suspended. He wasn't even tossed out of the game. They've got this flagrant 1, flagrant 2 thing, which I don't even want to. The language I used at home to describe that I won't use on air. Let's just say it's BS. Okay, and so I don't understand it. And my thing is, once again, maybe that's just my mentality from the sport that I normally watch. But if I'm Steven Adams, I just got kicked in the crotch. We're winning this game in a blowout fashion, and the guy who kicked me is still on the floor. I'm probably going to make sure he's not going to be able to eat a lot of solid foods for the next 2 to 3 weeks because I'm probably going to elbow him in the face. Granted, yes, okay, now you risk yourself getting suspended, yada, yada, but if you're really in a fight with the guy, you both get taken out, and you look on the grand scale of things, it kind of seems like Draymond Green would be a bigger loss for the Warriors than Steven Adams for Oklahoma City.
Right.
All that being said as well, it's just, like I said, if was it intentional, was it incidental, we'll never know officially. Maybe years down the road, Draymond Green at, some, anniversary ceremony of this season or whatever talks about it, says, yeah, I kicked him. I meant it. I doubt it'll ever happen. But it's just, and once everything's done, like I said, it should okay, now it's done. All right, he was fine. He wasn't suspended. Let's move on.
Expect to see that in 2025's bestseller, Draymond Green. Yes, I kicked him.
Exactly.
All right, let's switch gears and head over to the NHL. All right, the NHL playoffs, both series rather, going to 7 games with the Game 6 in the Western Conference.
It's Game 6 right now as we speak.
Got ahead of myself.
With about 4 minutes left in the second period, the San Jose Sharks are up 2-0 on the St. Louis Blues at home. Sharks win this game. They will be going to the Stanley Cup Finals for the first time in their 25-year history. So that'll be it'll be a big celebration in the Bay Area. At least there'll be one Bay Area team that we know for sure will be getting to the championship round. And it's been a good game. It's been a good series. These are two teams that weren't expected to get this far. You look at the St. Louis Blues, great team, played in a tough Central Division. They were able to beat their rivals, the Chicago Blackhawks, in a great 7-game series. Brian Elliott was masterful in net. They got some timely goals from some unlikely sources. Troy Brouwer, a former Blackhawk player who was able to get that game-winning goal in Game 7. Robbie Fabry is another kid who's come on out of nowhere. He's leading the Blues with 15 points in the postseason. That's what it takes this time of year. The NHL is so different than the NBA, where it's not your star guys. Your star guys actually, for the most part, in the postseason, tend to have some really bad performances. Within a series here or there. And it's usually those role players, those bottom line guys whose names never end up on the score sheet in the regular season. Those are the guys that really step up and come up with some key goals late, the big overtime goals, and keep a team going through the postseason. So that's just what you've seen with the St. Louis Blues and really with the San Jose Sharks as well. Sharks are a little more top heavy with their talent. Joe Thornton, longtime Shark forward, he's been in the league for seemingly ever. It'd be nice to see him finally reach a cup final. He's a great, hardworking player who definitely deserves a shot to lift Lord Stanley's Cup. Patrick Marleau, Joe Pavelski, he's been absolutely amazing. He's a kid that, for those who don't watch hockey often, you'll get to see him represent Team USA coming up this September in the World Cup of Hockey, which will be happening. I think that's around late September, early October. This guy is a phenomenal talent. Really gritty player, good hands, good offensive talent. Come up with some big goals, especially in this series against St. Louis. And he's a fun guy to watch. Martin Jones, the goalie for the Sharks, has been lights out. Former LA Kings backup. He's won a cup, been to a cup final, got a ring as a backup. Now he's trying to get to the finals as a starter. And these are two teams that have had struggles in the playoffs. They're like the Cincinnati Bengals and or the Los Angeles Clippers of hockey, kind of. They have these good teams that never quite get over the hump. But one of these teams have to make it to the finals finally, and it looks like San Jose can hold on. They'll be the team to do so. So it'll be a good story for a franchise that had a lot of promise for so many years, and now they finally get to that, make it to the final.
Yeah, and if they can pull this off, like you said, it was their first final. They were founded in 1991, and in the Eastern Conference, the Game 7 being Thursday in Pittsburgh, the Tampa Bay Lightning versus the host the Pittsburgh Penguins. Tampa Bay, did they win a title, or did they just get to the
Tampa
finals?
Bay? Yes, Tampa Bay won the Stanley
win
Cup in 2003, 2004 season. It was the season that was right before the season-long lockout.
Tortorella was the coach,
yes,
right?
Yeah, Tortorella. That was Dave Andreychuk's last game in the NHL. He finally got a Stanley Cup. Vincent LeCavalier, who's now about to retire this season, he won a cup. He was the captain of that team as well. So Tampa Bay, and if they win this game tomorrow, they will repeat as Eastern Conference champions. They won the Prince of Wales Trophy last year, made it to the final, lost to the Blackhawks in 6 games. So that'll be interesting. A team that's missing their top scorer in Steven Stamkos hasn't played all postseason because he had a blood clot issue in his shoulder. He had surgery. They said he'd be out 1 to 3 months. He could be potentially back and healthy and ready should they win tomorrow night. Game 1 of the Cup final. Whomever plays, Game 1 will be on Memorial Day Monday night at 7. It'll be 7:00 Eastern, and he could be back, which would be huge for this Lightning team. But, I mean, they've done well without him. They've got a wealth of talent. Tyler Johnson, Valtteri Filppula, Victor Hedman, the young defenseman. And then they're also playing well without their star goalie, Ben Bishop, who got hurt at the beginning of the series, has a lower body injury. They're not, the NHL is really good at hiding injuries better than any other league. They just say, oh, it's an upper body injury. We don't know if he broke his nose or he lost all his teeth or, if his head's hanging off, it's funny how they kind of cover things off. A lower body injury could mean he has a, bruise on his foot, or he could have a broken leg. And we won't know about it until that series is over. If you go back and Google some NHL injuries, year-end, season-end injuries, you'll hear of guys playing through things that would have kept them out of a regular season for months. Guys playing Patrick Sharp for the Dallas Stars played through the whole second round with a separated shoulder, and they just called it a day-to-day arm injury. So the NHL is funny about things like that. It shows you just how tough some of these guys really are. You've seen a lot of high sticks, a lot more teeth missing in this postseason than in previous years. It's always been a cliche with hockey, but it's come true to form, I think, this season. And, so looking at Tampa Bay, Pittsburgh's been a great team. I know a lot of people are familiar with Sidney Crosby, but Phil Kessel's another guy who's been a solid scorer in this series. The question for Pittsburgh is their goaltending. Matt Murray, a 21-year-old kid, he was a rookie, only had 13 starts in the regular season this year, and most of them were in relief in middle of the season. He came through, and he was huge for Pittsburgh. He's the reason why Pittsburgh's even made it this far into the playoffs, but he had a rusty showing, and Marc-Andre Fleury, the regular goalie, who was good all year but has had concussion issues. He suffered 2 of them during the season. He's now taken back over in net, and he was the goalie that started in Game 6 or Game 5. Murray started in Game 6, and they were able to win. So it's a question of who do you ride with in a Game 7. Marc-Andre Fleury hasn't had the strongest track record overall. Yes, he does have a Stanley Cup win back in 2009, but he's had some hit or miss efforts in the postseason where Matt Murray, this kid's been hot all year, but he is a rookie. This is the biggest game of his career. Do you really want to throw him into the fire against a Tampa Bay team that has a lot of experience at being in the spot they were in a Game 7 to get to the Stanley Cup final last year? So it's going to be an interesting game. Looking at from the betting line here, Pittsburgh's a 2-1 favorite, so you have to lay 200 to win 100, and that's pretty steep for a winner-take-all series. Yes, Pittsburgh's the home team, but Tampa Bay hasn't been a slouch on the road. In all 3 games that they have won in this series, they were underdogs, sizable underdogs. So my gut, I want to look at playing the plus money with Tampa Bay. They have the experience, they certainly have the talent, and they won't be fazed by playing it in what will be a hostile Pittsburgh crowd. But the Penguins have looked so sharp, and they looked sharp on the road in Game 6. It's going to be tough. This is definitely going to be must-watch television tomorrow night. The game starts at 8:05 Eastern. I think this will definitely be a tight battle.
What's the Stanley Cup final you're hoping for?
I personally would like to see San Jose and Pittsburgh. I have a series price play on San Jose at plus 110, so I'm hoping that cashes tonight. And I'd like to see them match up with Pittsburgh. I think that would be the best matchup. Those two teams are highly offensively matched. They play physical, but it's not their main style. It's not their main component. They play physical hockey when they need to, but they like to play a more wide open, free flow style of hockey. Both have very good goaltenders. And both have some incredible fan bases, some incredible home crowds. So the atmospheres will be electric for all the games in that series, as it would if it ends up being St. Louis or Tampa Bay in the final as well. These are some solid fan bases, all four clubs. But I think San Jose Pittsburgh will be the most exciting matchup for a final. I think the fans will really get a kick out of seeing these two teams. These are teams that a lot of casual fans don't get to see, and even a lot of some of the more serious fans. St. Louis being a West Coast team, it's hard for a lot of East Coast fans to stay up and catch some of their games for the most part. So it'll be interesting. I'm sure it's been a treat for a lot of fans who haven't gotten to see them during the rest of the year, getting to see them now play in a deep postseason run.
And they got to worry about the Lightning here with a little bit of unfinished business after losing the Cup last year.
Sure, yeah, and that does happen. I mean, Pittsburgh was a team that had that kind of happen where they lose a cup and then they bounce back and win it as well. So, like I said, it's a Tampa Bay team this Tampa Bay team's not as good as last year's team, but they're a lot more resilient, and that's what counts this time of year. So, the fact that they were able to claw their way and even get to a Game 7, like I said, without their leading scorer, losing their top goalie in the beginning of the series. It'll be a testament to how hard the Lightning have worked, how good of a coach John Cooper is, and how good of an organization they are. Steve Yzerman, the former Detroit Red Wing, he's the general manager down there in Tampa. He's done a tremendous job putting this team together and building an organization that's about winning. This guy knows he's a cup winner. He was a proven winner year after year with Detroit, and he's brought that winning mentality down to Tampa Bay and in that organization, and they're going to have some solid talent for years to come.
All righty. Do you, as a gambler, I say that, doesn't that have a negative connotation to it? Just the gambler. I mean, it is what it is.
That's my occupation. So
yeah, I know. I'm just saying. It just sounds like he's a gambler. Oh, Jesus. Do you, as a gambler, shy away from Game 7s, or is it something that doesn't faze you at all?
No, it doesn't. It depends on how the teams have reached the Game 7. For example, it's the end of the second period now with San Jose, St. Louis. San Jose up 2-0 still. Should St. Louis come back and win this game and go to a Game 7, I will more than likely have a play on that Game 7. I'm not sure what it'll be. I won't release that information to you now if I did know exactly how I'd be playing it. You'd have to go to sportsmemo.com and find that out. But no, it depends on how Game 7s occur. I'm not going to be playing Tampa Bay Pittsburgh tomorrow night. I lean with Tampa Bay because of the value in betting that number. I don't think Pittsburgh should be favored that high because it's a Game 7. Where two teams have evenly matched, I believe this game should be priced closer to a 50-50, a pick'em spot. So there's value in Tampa Bay. And normally in a regular season game, I would be all over that. I'd be chasing that value. But I'm not a big fan of going against certain spots in the postseason. I do think Pittsburgh's a tough team at home. I think Pittsburgh's the better hockey club, and I think the way that they were able to dominate Tampa Bay at home in Game 6, where I had Tampa Bay as a big play, I like the Lightning going into Game 6. I thought they would be able to take care of business at home. Like I said, being a resilient team, being in this familiar spot of getting back into a Cup final, and they were just outclassed by a Penguin team that was dominant, blocking shots, scoring, not turning over the puck too much in the neutral zone. So for Pittsburgh to play that well on the road, and now they come home to familiar territory, I like Pittsburgh in the spot to get the win, but the value play is with Tampa Bay. I don't lay chalk that high in hockey, so it won't be a bet for me. It'll be a game I'll be watching. But no, I don't shy away from Game 7s unless it's a situation that I don't like that made that series go to a 7th game.
All right. Now I'm trying to think of some classy NHL questions to ask you here. Do you think that the NHL is arriving at a level of parity that rivals the NFL?
Yeah, I'd say so. You look at a lot of teams that San Jose is a good example. You had San Jose was a perennial playoff team for years and years. Couldn't quite get over the hump. Just a couple of seasons ago, they had a 3-0 series lead in the first round against the LA Kings. They lose 4 games in a row. They get knocked out. The Kings go on to win the Stanley Cup that postseason. And those are 2 hated rivalries, 2 California clubs that don't like each other, play in the same division. That next year, the Sharks completely tanked off. They had a new coach, new leadership in the locker room, and they missed out on the playoffs. And now here they are, 1 win away. They're 20 minutes away now from potentially making their first ever Cup final. So yeah, any team can have a window where they can go from being a middle of the road playoff team to possibly being out of the playoffs to back in the playoffs to being a championship contender in just a few years. And so. It's a balance that's really good for the league. It's interesting because the Canadian teams haven't done as well in recent years. We haven't seen a Canadian Stanley Cup winner in over 20-something years. And this year, it's only the second time since the 70s where none of the Canadian teams in the league made the playoffs. So that's not good for ratings. It's not really good for the league overall. Our neighbors to the north aren't too happy about that, obviously, but like I said, that could change next year. We could see all the Canadian teams in the playoffs. So you never really know what you'll get. You have a common core of top teams that usually make the playoffs every 5 or 6 years, but even that kind of changes around. Maybe we won't see Chicago in the playoffs next year after seeing them 8 years in a row. Maybe Detroit's 25-year streak finally comes to an end next season. Maybe a team like Carolina who played poorly but didn't finish as bad as a lot of people expected early in the year. Maybe they make the jump into the postseason. Maybe a Toronto team or a Buffalo team, clubs that have been struggling for years, finally make it over the hump with their young talent and get into the playoffs. It's definitely a fresh approach every season. I think that's what makes the NHL so exciting to watch.
All right, awesome answer. All right, let's switch gears real quick. We're running out of time. We got about 7 minutes left to go in our hour. Let's head over to the Diamond. And is there any action, any numbers, any odds being laid on Jackie Bradley Jr. breaking Joe DiMaggio's streak yet?
I haven't seen anything in particular, but I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on it. I think he got a hit tonight and made it down to 29 games.
Correct.
And I saw the numbers earlier today where there's been over a couple of dozen players that have reached 30 games. There's only been 5 players to reach 35 or more hits, and then there's only been 1 player to reach 40 or more hits. That was Pete Rose in the mid-70s. So we're entering some, this is territory where we got to start keeping an eye for sure on Jackie Bradley Jr. This is incredible what he's done, and the way he's been hitting too. I mean, it's not just getting a dribbler a night out of the infield. This guy's putting up some serious numbers, some serious slugging numbers as well. So he's doing well. He's helped Boston climb up to the top of the AL East. I think they're leading the East by a game over Baltimore right now. So, it's fun to see. And, we always talk about that streak being, one of the streaks, we'll never see it happen. You look at the difference between Bradley Jr. and DiMaggio and the time they played. DiMaggio didn't have to worry about a guy coming into the 7th inning throwing 95 miles an hour. Okay. Usually he was facing the same pitcher he had seen a week ago 2 weeks ago and already gotten a couple of hits off of. So it's a different game. It's a much different era as far as hitting and pitching are concerned. So what Bradley's already done is incredible in my eyes, but it would be nice to see him keep this going as long as he can.
A funny story about the hitting streak record, a little aside here. The first year that I really got into baseball was 1987. Okay, I was 11 years old. Mm-hmm. And so, learning about the game and not knowing anything, you start hearing all the stories about Joe DiMaggio, 56 games, and it's a horrible record, or it's a terrible record to break. It'll never be broken. It's too high. It'll never be done. And that year, Paul Molitor goes for 39, right. And Benny Santiago of the Padres went for another 34 in 87. So I'm like, look, somebody's got to do it. It can't be that hard. And then life goes on, and now I'm 40, and I realize just how hard it is to do that. Yeah. But it's I just remember thinking, God, 2 guys are in their 30s already. Somebody's going to get 56 eventually, and here it is, 2016.
Yeah, and the thing, you think that, wow, especially with how hitting has advanced in the last, 16 to 25 years, you think, okay, yeah, somebody would have had that by now. But that just shows you, I always say it, the hardest thing in sports to do is hit a baseball. As someone who's played baseball, I was a terrible hitter. For the most part, that's why I became a pitcher when I played. But it's incredibly difficult to do, and be able to do that even once a single day in a game, and stretch that out, like you said, 15, 20, 25, now 29 games. It's remarkable. Yeah,
no, it's the mental toughness, more than anything, I think. Just to, especially when people start asking questions. Once you get around 30, then the heat intensifies. If this kid gets it up to 40, we haven't seen that in the modern era,
right?
So
and now that's ESPN breaking in, in the middle of whatever they're showing to show you his at bat. That's the crowds getting louder, and people in opposing teams. Fans standing up for you, so it's a different atmosphere. It's gonna be a different atmosphere for him as a player, because he's used to either getting cheered at home or booed on the road. But no, now he's really under the microscope, and that pitcher on the mound doesn't want to be that guy to give up the hit. It kind of reminds me of what Bonds' record. No pitcher wanted to be Bonds' 70th, 70s, first, 72nd, 73rd home runs. They didn't want to be that trivia question answer. And, that's why we saw him get walked as many times as we did. And, so with Bradley, I don't think we're going to start seeing guys walking Jackie Bradley Jr., but, it's on the minds of everybody when they face him. Hey, this is what we're facing.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we are out of time. Alex, can you tell everybody where we can find you on the internet?
Yeah, follow me on Twitter at AXSmithSports. I'll be doing a lot of hockey stuff coming up this week. I'll have my Stanley Cup Finals report, and I'll have some stuff written up, and doing some more radio spots and whatnot. Getting ready for, like I said, Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final will be Monday night, and the schedules will be posted and so forth. And once hockey's done with, I'll be taking a bit of a vacation, which is much needed. And then I'll be getting ready, diving headfirst into football books. So I'll be talking some college and pro football as well. So AX Smith Sports on Twitter, axsmithsports.com, sportsmemo.com. Those are places where you can find me.
All right. And that will do it. That'll do it for this edition of The Box Seats here on LateNightSportsRadio.com. We'll be here every Tuesday night at 11 p.m. Eastern. I'm sorry, 10 p.m. Eastern time. Tomorrow night, Wednesday night. I'm sorry, tomorrow night's Thursday night. The Johnny Babo Show, 10 p.m. Eastern time until midnight. And then that'll be the last show for the week until Sunday night with the Bob Sullivan Show. For Alex B. Smith from SportsMemo.com, I am Keith Grieve from 87sportsfans.com. Thanks for joining us. Have a fantastic week.